welcome to this new episode of A Talk 2. Today we will talk about how the current challenging market conditions are shaping the wealth management industry. But first of all, I want to introduce my guest, Roger Portnoy, who is Chief Strategy Officer at Objectway. Objectway is one of the top 100 global fintech providers in the wealth and investment management software industry. So welcome, Roger, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, Objectway has recently presented a joint publication with Global Data, and this publication is called Unlocking Opportunity in Challenging Times, Innovation in European Financial Services. So, this document is based on Global Data's annual surveys on financial services companies and aims to check the health condition of the industry in these tough years. This document want to check and see how the industry is responding to these challenging conditions, as we said before, in terms of innovation projects, strategies, and also investments. So, first of all, I want to ask you, how is the entire geopolitical scenario, along with the financial crisis, of course, changing the wealth management industry, and how is the offering evolving to adapt to these changes?
Okay, it's a big question. I think first off, one of the things we learned from the Global Data Survey was profitability did suffer in the past year, right? And it suffered because the industry had to adjust to falling capital flows, had to adjust to a lot of volatility in the market, and had to adjust to the fact that regulatory change was going on at the same time as there was geopolitical unrest, right? And the industry is in a fast-moving, dynamic industry all the time, and so as a result, what you saw was a lot of companies had falling revenues, decreased profitability, and sort of deterioration in their cost-income ratios. So that's kind of on the negative side, right? And the industry has suffered from that from time to time. So it's not like it never happens, but probably the events, because they were combined with rising interest rates as well, were more difficult for many firms. Normally what would happen when this happens is everyone pulls back from investing, right, in their business. They basically go into lockdown mode on innovation, and they basically stop projects, full speed stop projects that are not essential to their development. So that would have been normally what would have happened, and did happen in 2008, 2009, when we had a real financial crisis, not just SVB faltering, etc. But the Global Data Survey showed that this time that really didn't happen, which is interesting, because it would be the natural thing for a leader to say, hey, let's not do anything that's outside of our business as usual right now. And I think the reason for that was because we're in kind of a digital transformation period. And firms realize that they can't kind of stop when they're going through a program of change which impacts the client experience, impacts the way they run their business, impacts their profitability in the longer term, and also impacts the way they sort of think about sustainability, which is one of the themes of our report as well. So what we saw this time was firms sort of had to respond to the negativity, but rather than just kind of stop, they decided to focus on those innovations that really mattered and to invest in those innovations, even though, as you said, there was tough and challenging conditions.
And so in the attempt to innovate, as you were saying, the wealth management industry is working on bringing the customer experience, let's say, to a higher level. So how are they doing this? Do you think it is really possible?
So client experience is sort of one of the areas which is the easiest for maybe the industry to understand where to innovate. Why? Because we had a pandemic. When we had a pandemic, people were suddenly not in the office, were interacting remotely, and were changing their behavior to respond to that, right? So we have seen change. The industry has had to respond to the fact that during a pandemic, you could not do face-to-face reviews. You could not invite customers in to have ad hoc discussions. You had to go into a remote mode, right? So once you have that foundation, what do you then do in the client experience? Well, in the Objectway way of looking at the world, which is kind of the way we push Global Data when they were doing the survey, what do? First, you enhance your secure communication model. So you can chat more digitally and in a more secure way digitally and share information more effectively digitally. And we have technologies that enable that, and that we have seen rise, the take up of those technologies has risen quite a lot, right? So that's one obvious way. I think the less obvious way, but which is also happening, is you get clients to self-serve more. So client experience isn't always about how the advisor changes, but also how the advisor enables, right? How do you enable? Well, in traditional banking world, right, you allow customers to onboard themselves, apply for applications on their own. The wealth industry has kind of adopted that principle too. So, I want to trade by myself. How do I do it? I have to be enabled, right, through a digital means, right? I want to start making decisions about my own portfolio. Well, I need research. How do I get that research? Through a digital channel, right? So what the industry's done is it's sort of figured out that there are digital means of delivery, there are digital means of enablement, and there are digital means of communication, and they've adopted all those into the client experience. Obviously, we as a wealth tech company, try to enable all that to happen. Probably the last point is the industry, at least at the moment, is fascinated by the opportunity that AI might present. It's by no means in the client experience yet. So, and I know the Bank of Italy has their own views on what belongs in AI in Italy and what doesn't belong in AI in Italy. But putting that aside, I think the industry is obviously also looking at how do we take the client experience, personalize it, and scale it. And clearly that's going to have to involve some changes to whether you use AI and how you use AI.
So, industry's objectives include supporting and facilitating the evolution of the operating model. So, how can this be achieved?
So, the operating model refers to how firms actually deliver the operational services they provide. So, if you imagine when you are opening an account, there are a series of processes that have to occur: onboarding you, carrying out KYC and AML, right? Creating the account on the custodial side, enabling that account to be funded, administering that account when investments go into it. Okay, that's the traditional pathway to providing the operating model. Okay, now firms are starting to realize that there are other experts out there who have more scale and who have more capabilities to use automation to make that cheaper to do externally than internally. So if you think about it, the internal cost sometimes to run an account can run into 30, 50 basis points, right? And that hits the profit margin substantially. But now you can start looking at outsourcing or arranging with an external provider and reduce the cost by half. So obviously the transformation comes when firms start saying, okay, what am I really good at? Let's do that. What am I not so good at? Or what am I not so cost effective at? And let's change my target operating model in relation to that. And that's happening all over the value chain of wealth. So it's not really happening fully in the front office, but you are even seeing let's think about outsourcing investment management, not just outsourcing the administration, the custodial, the record keeping functions, etc. So that's the evolution that's going on now. That evolution can happen because we have cloud. We have platforms in cloud, we have scalability in platforms in cloud, and we have services that interconnect with each other through cloud, which means that someone who's done all that already, built the plumbing, as I say, has a competitive advantage to offer it to other people. And so that's really what's going on.
So thank you, Roger, for this insightful overview, and thank you for being with us today. And thank you all for watching. Keep following us on our website and social media channels.